मम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरून् श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सगुणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमोऽस्तुते तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So we will continue the introduction to Bhagavad Gita, and we have kind of covered a good number of topics here. The basic why this Bhagavad Gita is needed, and like what is its pre-qualifications and requirements, and then also we saw about the subject matters of Bhagavad Gita. So Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, Kala, and Karma, and then now we are exploring that further here. So let's start from today's paragraph. The supreme conscious Ishvara is similar to living entity in this way. Both the consciousness of the Lord and that of the living entity are transcendental. It is not that consciousness is generated by association of matter. So this is what the material scientists are claiming, that life has come about at a particular point in time. Life has come about by the combination of matter and things like that. So all theory of evolution and this Darwin's theory and things like that. So it all talks about how consciousness has come about. Initially some consciousness has come about in some one celled living entity was born, and then gradually it actually evolved into different species of life and things like that and all. So but then they are all quite funny also, like to listen to. So it is actually, it is mentioned that polar bear, when it fell into a water body, and then he was swimming across in the water body for a long time, and then he went on to become a whale. So it's like we don't see that kind of transformations. No, we don't see any monkeys turning into human beings. No. So these are all theory of evolutions. No, it is only a theory. No, we don't have any practicals for it. We cannot prove even one physical demonstration of how these transformations have happened. So even though the monkeys are there, so they don't actually become human beings. So the whole basis of this one, that matter produces life, is actually baseless. And in fact, Prabhupada, he mentions that we see like a lemon tree. So much of citric acid is there in lemon, and a tree is filled with so many lemons, and it is all produced by one life that is there. So it is from life the chemicals actually come, not from chemicals life comes. No, if the tree dies, no more chemicals produced, right? So if you cut a branch of the tree, and will that produce more chemicals? No, it will not. So it is necessary. Life is necessary for no production of matter, but for life, matter is not the basis of life. The life is the basis of matter, right? So in fact, Prabhupada has written a book, Life Comes from Life. That is a very nice book, which talks about this important subject. So all of us have studied right from childhood in science books that life has come about by the combination of chemicals. So, but then no, it's completely opposite. The chemicals and the matter has come about from the life. If there is a child is born, if the life is there in the child, the body grows. and the flesh grows, the everything, all the necessary things which are there in the body are supplied. It actually grows. But if life is not there, then whatever is there, that deteriorates. The matter deteriorates. So only life actually sustains matter and produces matter. So matter in itself, it only gets deteriorated, right? So that's the understanding. And let's go further. That is a mistaken idea. So that means, like, no consciousness is generated by association of matter. So the theory that consciousness develops under certain circumstances of material combination is not accepted in Bhagavad Gita. Consciousness may be pervertedly reflected by the covering of material circumstances, just as light reflected through colored glass may appear to be a certain color, but the consciousness of the Lord is not materially affected. Lord Krishna says, Maya Dakshena Prakritihi. So we, the living entities, no, we can become affected by the material, this one. But the Supreme Lord, no, he cannot be affected by material nature because he is the Adhyaksha of the material nature. He is the like controller, and he is the owner of the material nature. So the material nature functions on his command. So he cannot come under the influence of material nature. He is always the master of the material nature. So when he descends into the material universe, his consciousness is not materially affected. If he were so affected, he would be unfit to speak on transcendental matters as he does in Bhagavad Gita. So whenever, this is a very important point, Prabhupada is making here. If we want to speak about anything spiritual subject, we must be free from the material modes of nature. So somebody may ask me, like, no, you are speaking about Bhagavad Gita. Are you free from material modes of nature? No, I am not free, but I am trying to speak as such whatever is given in Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna is beyond modes of material nature, and whatever he is speaking is divine. And if we try to repeat the same things, then our speech also will be divine. But if we concoct something of our own mind, so then it becomes immediately, which is a subject matter of three modes of nature. And if we hear the subject matter which is in three modes of nature, our bondage in the material world only increases. No, it doesn't liberate us from the problems. So that is why the sound vibration that is beyond the three modes of material nature, no, that must be heard. So that is what is Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. So those, those sound vibration, so, and the Hare Krishna mantra, so these are all beyond the modes of material nature. No, this sound vibration is not contaminated by the modes of material nature. So now, because it is coming from the transcendental plane, it is coming from a divine plane. So if we speak exactly the same words of Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam or the holy name, so then our speech also becomes beyond three modes of material nature, and that has the capacity to liberate a person, from the bondage of material existence. So if you at all want to save people of the world, if you at all want to help the people of the world, then we should try to speak this sound vibration, this Bhagavad Gita, this Srimad Bhagavatam. So that is very important. And if we, if you want to help in the way of foodstuffs, helping the poor and foodstuffs, then we should supply them prasad of the Lord, which is also beyond three modes of material nature. So things which are there in the three modes of material nature, it actually binds the person to more and more, bondage, right? So that is not very good. So we should embrace those things, or we should hear those things which are beyond the modes of material nature. Okay, so if Krishna were under the control of material nature, then whatever he is speaking, it doesn't make any sense. Like, he may give some very wonderful speech or motivational talk, but will that liberate a person from the material bondage? No, it cannot, because it is within the three modes of material nature. So now, only if we accept Krishna is beyond the modes of material nature, Janma Karma Cha Me Divyam, only if we understand that, so then understanding Bhagavad Gita makes some sense. Otherwise, if we think that Krishna is also one of the living entity like us, he also was born like us, and he also was like, maybe he's a little, more powerful person like that. So then there is no point in studying Bhagavad Gita, because, what's the point of studying another literature which is under three modes of material nature? So we are studying Bhagavad Gita because it is spoken by Krishna, who is beyond the three modes of material nature, right? So, okay. If he were so affected, he would be unfit to speak on transcendental matters as he does in the Bhagavad Gita. One cannot say anything about the transcendental world without being free from materially contaminated consciousness. So the Lord is not materially contaminated. Our consciousness at the present moment, however, is materially contaminated. Right? So we are contaminated by the three modes of nature. We work based on three modes of nature. Right? So whenever we follow the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, no, we are just immune to the three modes of nature. It's like a vaccination, no, because it is the content of Bhagavad Gita is beyond three modes of material nature. And if we just simply follow our mind's dictations and whatever we feel like and things like that, so then it is perfectly within three modes of material nature. Okay. The Bhagavad Gita teaches that we have to purify this materially contaminated consciousness. In pure consciousness, our actions will be dovetailed to the will of the Ishvara, and that will make us happy. No, that's the pure consciousness. In impure consciousness, we will be following the dictations or the will of dictations of the material modes of nature. And in the purified consciousness, we will be doing everything according to the will of the Ishvara, according to the will of the Supreme Lord. It is not that we have to cease all activities. Rather, our activities are to be purified, and purified activities are called bhakti. All the elements that are mentioned in the bhakti, as an elements of bhakti, so they are all purified activities, right? Sarva upadi vinirmuktam tat paratvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesa sevanam bhakti ruchyate. So that's the definition of bhakti. Bhakti means Sarva Upadi Vinirmuktam. So all other designations that we have taken, I am a male, I am a female, I am this, I am that, and so many things in relation to this world. So all that Upadi, all the designations, we have to give it up. Sarva Upadi Vinirmuktam Tat Paratvena Nirmalam. When we become completely free from all mala, when we become purified, so with that purified senses, Rishikena, Rishikeshaha, Sevanam. When we use these purified senses in the service of Rishikesha, the master of the senses or the Supreme Lord, so that is called bhakti. Right now, what we are trying to do, we are trying to practice the elements of bhakti, but our senses are not completely purified. So we have discussed this example quite a number of times. When a small child is trying to walk, there is no effective work done over there. It is just trying to get up and walk and then fall down and things like that. It cannot do any tangible work by its walking. So in the same way, when we are in the practicing stage of bhakti, we are not doing any tangible work, which is worth for the Lord. So, but then, like by practicing this bhakti of chanting and taking only prasadam and studying the scriptures and things like that and all, so we get purified. Our senses are getting purified. So the initial walk of a child is, there is no work done. Only work done is that it is learning to walk. That's the only work done. So in the same way, the initial, this one practice of bhakti, what we are trying to do, it is only, the only work done over here is our senses are getting purified. There is no tangible work. There is no tangible benefit the Lord is getting out of our bhakti, right? So once our senses become purified, so then the same activities of chanting and reading the books and like offering bhoga to the Lord and like doing the shringar for the Lord and all the activities that we are doing in connection to bhakti will offer nice pleasure to the Lord, right? So that is how this thing is. So we have to, the first business is to purify our senses, and by the way of hearing the holy name and by the way of hearing the scriptures and by the way of serving the Lord by offering him bhoga every day. I hope all of you here offer every day, like cook nice foodstuffs and offer every day bhoga to the Lord and accept only that which is offered to the Lord, right? So that is very, very important. So that is ahara, all the things that are going within us, the sound vibration that is going within us, that should be beyond the modes of material nature. And the foodstuffs that is going within us, that also should be beyond the modes of material nature. So if our input is completely beyond the modes of material nature, then we become purified. But if we still supply the input, which is no subject matter of three modes of material nature. If we just take foodstuffs, which is no contaminated by the three modes of nature, that means the foodstuffs which are not offered to Krishna first in sacrifice. Yajna shishta shinoshanta muchyante sarva kilbishay. Bunjante tve aham papa ye pachanti atma karanat. So yajna shishta means that which is remnants of the yajna, no, that which is first offered to the Supreme Lord as a boga, no, yajna shishta Shino Santa Muchyante Sarva Kilbishai. So it just frees a person from all the material bondage. So Yajna Shishta Shino Santa Muchyante Sarva Kilbishai. Bunjante Tve Aham Papa. No, E Pachanti Atma Karanat. So E Pachanti means like one who eats Atma Karanat, just to satisfy his senses, not offering the foodstuffs to the Lord, no, first in sacrifice. He is only eating sin. No, he is only eating the foodstuffs which is contaminated by three modes of nature, and that is effectively the sin. So more sins he keeps on eating. No, that's what we have been doing right from our childhood. All the food that we have eaten is all full of sin. So, and we asked like, no, why there is so much of problem in life? Because we have eaten so much of sin. So what else will be there in our life? So we have heard so much of sin, no, the sound vibration, which is subject matter of the three modes of nature. We have heard a lot of them. We have seen a lot of things which are no, in relation to the three modes of nature. So our ahara to the senses is all sin. So then obviously like we have to be very miserable in our life, right? So this is very important, that bhakti means to get exposed to only those things which are beyond the modes of material nature. So that's the very important aspect, right? So rather our activities are to be purified. We are not going to stop our activities, but our activities are to be purified, and purified activities are called bhakti. Activities in bhakti appear to be like ordinary activities, but they are not contaminated. An ignorant person may see that the devotee is acting or working like an ordinary man, but such a person with poor fund of knowledge does not know that the activities of the devotee or of the Lord are not contaminated by impure consciousness or matter. They are transcendental to the three modes of nature. We should know, however, that at this point our consciousness is contaminated. Right? So, for example, a devotee is eating, and no, a devotee is working in an office, and then he is taking a tiffin box, and another person is also bringing a tiffin box from home, and both of them are eating, and the other person sees, okay, this guy is also eating like me. But no, that food what the devotee is eating, it is first being offered to the Lord, no, as boga, and then it is being eaten. And then okay, like this person is also working and the devotee is also working. So then what's the difference? Like, no, both of them are exposed to the same material nature. No, the devotee is working, and the money that he is going to get, no, he is maintaining his family, and the center of the family is the Supreme Lord. And he treats his home as a temple of the Lord. And everything in the home belongs to the Lord, and it should be used in the service of the Lord. So when the home is maintained as a temple of the Lord, then all the earning that is done, no, to maintain that home, that becomes purified. No, if the earning is used for only sense gratification, no, like in the traditional families I have seen, no, any new clothes that are bought, first it is offered to the Lord. No, anything that comes to the home first, no, it is offered to the Lord. So that's a very nice culture actually. No, that was our culture. No, we have forgotten that culture. So now gradually it became only during the festivals we keep everything in front of the Lord. Then it became like, you know, we don't even keep anything in front of the Lord. Like, no, just do some puja and things like that. And gradually that also got dwindled. No, now the modern homes, like nothing happens. No, just a image of, no, the some god or a demigod is put over there, and then they say like, okay, like, no, you just oversee and take care of us, and any problem comes, they'll go and complain saying that, no, why have you put us in that such problem? So otherwise they don't even know that, like, no, they have to offer things to the Lord first and take it. So it is something like this. If we work for an organization, anything that we get, we should give it to the organization. No, if I produce some nice things by my work, so that must be given to the organization, and I should take my paycheck. No, that is called prasad. So in the same way, whatever I gain, No, my master is the Supreme Lord. It all belongs to my master. Nothing belongs to me. And whatever he gives to me back mercifully as prasad, that is purifying, right? So we should not take boga. No, anything that, be it new clothes, be it food, be it anything in our life, first it should be offered to the Lord. This principle should be very, very strongly etched into our life. Anything that I get, first it should be offered to the Lord. No, without offering to the Lord, I will not use anything, right? So that is the whole concept of Gadi Puja. Like people do puja to the vehicles. Why they do puja to the vehicles? No, why can't they just simply start using it? And nowadays it has become like, okay, I will use the vehicle for my sense gratification and God will protect me. That kind of an idea. So, but actual meaning is, no, I have bought this vehicle. It is actually meant to be a property of the Lord. And no, it has been put under my care. So let me use it for the service of the Lord. So I am a servant of the Lord, and this vehicle belongs to the Lord, and let us together serve the Lord. So that's the whole point. So we make the Lord sit in the vehicle. We keep a photograph of the Lord in the vehicle, and then we mentally pray that this belongs to you, and let me use this thing in your service, right? So in that way, like that is called prasad. That is what is that kind of activity is called bhakti. So it is not that simply I do some puja, I do some ganti and arati and things like that, and I'm doing bhakti. No, it is not bhakti. So bhakti means to render service to the Lord and to treat everything as a property of the Lord and give everything first, in sacrifice to the Lord. Then after that, use them as prasad and use it for the service of the Lord. So that's the main this one. So we need to learn the art of doing every single activity of our life as a service to the Lord. So then it becomes purified consciousness. Right? Okay. So now, when we are materially contaminated, we are called conditioned. False consciousness is exhibited under the impression that I am a product of material nature. This is called false ego. No, I am a product of material nature. No, I am a male or a female, or I am so intelligent. I am capable of doing very Herculean tasks. All these things is what? So I am a male or a female based on the body that I have got. It is not the position of the soul. And then I am very intelligent. We saw that earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. No, intelligence is also a material entity. So why am I identifying myself as the intelligence? And then I can do Herculean tasks. I can lift this, I can do this. So what is it? It is a capacity of the body. So like, why I have to identify myself with the body? So this is all called false ego or false identification. Ego means identification. So I am falsely identifying myself as a product of this material nature, right? So that's my conditioned state. Okay. One who is absorbed in the thought of bodily conceptions cannot understand his situation. Bhagavad Gita was spoken to liberate one from the bodily conception of life, and Arjuna put himself in this position in order to receive this information from the Lord. One must become free from the bodily conception of life. That is the preliminary activity for transcendentalists. So this is the main preliminary activity. It is not even the end of it. No, it is not even the perfection of the whole thing. So the preliminary activity is to understand that we are part and parcel of the Lord. We are not this body. We are meant to serve the Lord. So this is the ABCD, or the first step of any yoga process, be it Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, whatever may be the yoga process. This is the ABCD. So this is the beginning point of every yoga process. Okay. And then one who wants to become free, who wants to become liberated, must first of all learn that he is not this material body. Mukti or liberation means freedom from material consciousness. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, also, the definition of liberation is given. Muktir hitva anyatha rupam swarupena vyavastitihi. Mukti means liberation from the contaminated consciousness of this material world and situation in pure consciousness. So mukti means not something like, no, I'm going to be transferred from here, like some kind of an airplane will come and it'll take me far away, some place, and if I reach that place, then I got mukti. No, mukti is something to do with our consciousness. So mukti is something to do with our consciousness being dwelling right now in material things, it has to start dwelling on the spiritual plane. No, mukti is something very internal. It is not external. So, okay, all the instructions of Bhagavad Gita are intended to awaken this pure consciousness, and therefore we find at last stage of Gita's instruction that Krishna is asking Arjuna whether he is now in purified consciousness. So Krishna is asking, like, no, are you feeling purified in your consciousness? So are you feeling what is that? Are you free from the bodily conception of life? No. So that's something that Krishna is asking. Right? So purified consciousness means acting in accordance with the instructions of the Lord. So the moment we read Bhagavad Gita and follow based on Bhagavad Gita, immediately we are acting on liberated plane. We may be contaminated, we may be still not liberated, but we can act on the plane of liberation, by just following the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, right? So it is like, if we have some ailment, no disease, and then like if one of our family member is having some disease, and then we are ringing up a doctor, and we are not a doctor, but we are now, no, there is no other way, like, no, I am there next to that patient and I have to administer the medicine. So, but I am not a doctor. So I am calling up a doctor, and then, no, I am asking him, these are the symptoms and this is what I am seeing. What should I do now? And the doctor is advising you give such and such medicines, and that will take care of the situation. So no, I am not a doctor, but I am just following the advice of a doctor. So I have not gone to the medical college, studied MBBS for 5 years, and all those circus I have not done. But then simply following the instructions of a doctor, will make my actions as good as a doctor, right? So in the same way, I may not be liberated, I may not have purified my senses right now, but then simply following the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, it actually purifies, it actually enables me to act on the plane of liberated position. So if I am constantly meditating on the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, and every single activity of my life I am doing on the basis of Bhagavad Gita, then I am already acting on the liberated platform. Though I may not be liberated physically, means like in my condition, I may not be liberated. So, but then my actions are on the plane of liberation. So by doing such actions, I also get qualification of, being liberated. So how did a doctor become a doctor? So he went to the college and then he practiced medicine. He studied about various things, and he also heard from like other senior doctors who are expert in these things, and he studied the books. And over a period of experience, that is why the doctors tell that we are practicing, like more the practice, more better a doctor he is. And more if a person is like listening to a doctor and then he's doing, so he will also become like a doctor. So in the same way, more we are like reading Bhagavad Gita and applying those principles in our life, and every action of our life, we are tallying with Bhagavad Gita. So then we are acting on the plane of liberation, and we will also become liberated. Our senses also will become purified in the process, and we will become completely liberated in the whole this one. So in this way, we can actually tread the path of liberation, right? So purified consciousness means acting in accordance with the instructions of the Lord. So that's the Bhagavad Gita, right? This is the whole sum and substance of purified consciousness. Consciousness is already there, but we are part and parcel of the Lord. But for us, there is the affinity of being affected by the inferior modes. So we have an affinity to be affected by the inferior modes, and we also have the tendency to follow the Supreme Lord. So both are there. There is a competition that is going on. So we have to take a conscious call, of serving the Lord or following the Lord. Okay. But the Lord being supreme is never affected. So we are affected by the material consciousness, but the Lord is never affected. This is the difference between the Supreme Lord and small individual souls. So this is this one. So this is about the difference between or difference and similarities between the individual soul and the super soul or the Supreme Lord. So now in this we saw that the Supreme Lord is beyond the material nature, and if he is not beyond the material nature, if he is under the control of material nature, there is no point in studying his Bhagavad Gita No, because his subject matter that he has spoken also will be within the modes of material nature. So what's the point of studying that contaminated literature again? And then we also discussed about like how we should all our input into the system should be beyond the material nature. So then we will become purified very, very quickly, and we will be on the liberated plane. Even if we are not in the liberated plane, if we follow the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, if Bhagavad Gita guides every single activity of our life, so then we are already acting on the plane of liberation, right? So, and finally, again, Prabhupada concludes with the same point that Lord and us, the difference, one of the very stark differences, we have the affinity to come under the modes of material nature, but the Lord can never come under the modes of material nature. He is always transcendental. Transcendental means it is divyam, or something divine, and divine means which is not within the three modes of nature. Three modes of nature means material nature, and beyond the three modes of nature means spiritual nature. So there is only two states of existence. One is spiritual and material. Material means it is under three modes of nature. It should be in under some, like either mode of goodness, passion, ignorance. It should be under any one of these three or a combination of these three. No, then it is called material. If it is not under these three, then it is immediately spiritual. No, it is divine, transcendental. Okay. So now let us see the next paragraph. It is getting into the other next topic. What is this consciousness? This consciousness is I am. No, that's I am conscious that no, I am existing. The awareness that I exist. Awareness that no, I am an entity and I dislike some things, and this is the way I work and things like that. So this self-awareness is the consciousness, right? So then what am I? I am in contaminated consciousness. I am means I am the Lord of all I survey. I am the enjoyer. And no, we can add so many things. No, like I am a male or a female. I am an Indian. I am a Hindu. No, I am this. I am that. No, so many things. No, that is there. So all those things are no false conceptions. No contaminated conceptions. The real conception is that I am spirit soul, part and parcel of the Lord, and I am meant to serve the Supreme Lord. So that is the only purified consciousness. So the world revolves because every living being thinks that he is the Lord and creator of the material world. Material consciousness has two psychic divisions. One is that I am the creator, and another is that I am the enjoyer. No, these two things. This is the material consciousness. That's why Krishna says, Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasham Sarvalokam Maheshwaram Suhridam Sarvabhutanam Nyatva Mam Shanti Mruchati. So fifth chapter, 29th shloka, I suppose, the last shloka of fifth chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says this. So one who understands Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasham Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. So that means if one understands the Lord is the enjoyer and Lord is the proprietor or the creator of this entire creation. So proprietor and creator are almost synonymously used. So who is the creator, and he is the proprietor also. So in that way, like what is that? By understanding the Lord is a creator and enjoyer, so we become peaceful. So if we think we are the creator, we are the enjoyer, then we become miserable. No, we are to cooperate in the service of the Lord to make the Lord feel the enjoyment. So we are supposed to serve the Lord and make him feel enjoyed. That is our main purpose. That is our position. If we want to be the whole and soul enjoyer, then we will be miserable. Okay. But actually the Supreme Lord is both the creator and the enjoyer, and the living entity, being part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, is neither the creator nor the enjoyer, but a cooperator. He is created and enjoyed. No, it's very important. He is created and enjoyed. No, we are meant to be enjoyed by the Lord. We are not the enjoyers. We are not the persons who supposed to be enjoying. So by cooperation with the Lord, we get enjoyment. No, we get enjoyment. But then we are not the primary enjoyer. We are a subordinate enjoyer. For instance, a part of a mission cooperates with the whole mission. A part of the body cooperates with the whole body. The hands, legs, eyes, and so on are all parts of the body, but they are not actually the enjoyers. The stomach is the enjoyer. The leg moves, the hand supplies food, the teeth chews. All the parts of the body are engaged in satisfying the stomach, because the stomach is the principal factor that nourishes the body's organization. Therefore, everything is given to the stomach. Pranopaharat yatendriyenam tataiva sarvarhanamachyutejya. So, in the same way, like there is another example is also there. One nourishes a tree by watering its root. No, yata taror moola nishechanena tripyanti yatskanda bhujopashaka pranopaharat yatendriyenam tataiva sarvarhanamachyutejya. So this is a shloka from Srimad Bhagavatam, which Prabhupada is just putting the translation of the shloka only. If we see, most of the writings of Srila Prabhupada is actually just connecting few shlokas in the scriptures, and then he's just giving building a logic here. So it is not that it is just he's writing some essay of his own. No, it is like every single line of Srila Prabhupada can be mapped to a shloka. That's how perfect the this one is. That is why we are reading this book. Otherwise, if Prabhupada would have wrote something of his own, then it is product of three modes of nature. Why should we read such a literature? That will only create bondage for us. So, but here we see Srila Prabhupada's writings, every single word is directly coming from the Vedic scriptures, right? So it is really, really very powerful. And it is given in such an easy way. If Prabhupada would have just put all these things, yata taror mula nishechana, none of us would have been able to understand anything of head or tail of this. But then he is putting in such a simple language that we can easily understand, right? So it's mentioned, therefore, everything is given to the stomach because like stomach is the enjoyer, and it supplies the nourishment for every part of the body, and every part of the body also enjoys, but not as the primary enjoyer. They have to work and serve the stomach, and when the stomach is satisfied, then the whole body is satisfied. So in the same way here, like one nourishes the tree by watering its root, and one nourishes the body by feeding the stomach. For if the body is to be kept in a healthy state, then the parts of the body must cooperate to feed the stomach. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is the enjoyer and the creator, and we as subordinate living beings are meant to cooperate to satisfy him. This cooperation will actually help us. Just as food taken by the stomach will help all other parts of the body. If the fingers of the hand think that they should take the food themselves instead of giving it to the stomach, then they will be frustrated. That's what is happening now. So we are thinking that we are the enjoyers, and we want to keep everything for ourselves and not for the service of the Lord. So we become frustrated. More we do this, more we will be frustrated. The central figure of creation and of enjoyment is the Supreme Lord, and the living entities are cooperators. By cooperation, they enjoy. The relation is also like that of the master and the servant. If the master is fully satisfied, then the servant is satisfied. Similarly, the Supreme Lord should be satisfied, although the tendency to become the creator and the tendency to enjoy the material world are there also in the living entities, because these tendencies are there in the Supreme Lord who has created the manifested cosmic world. So we are trying to enjoy and create just because we are part and parcel of the Lord. The Lord has the tendency, so we also have the tendency. So in a minute way, but then we should use this tendency to serve the Lord. Assist in Lord's creation, assist in Lord's enjoyment. We should not become the primary creator or enjoyer. The moment we think that I am the creator of this thing, like for example, our children, we think that, oh, I am the creator of this child. So then it becomes a miserable thing. So Dhruva Maharaj's mother, Suniti, she actually tells that when Dhruva Maharaj was offended by his stepmother, and then he is very much crying and things like that. And that time, Suniti, she is telling, you see, I am your mother, but I cannot help you, beyond the point. No, you should take shelter of the Supreme Lord, who's the mother and father of all the living entities, and he will help you. No, this is the job of a parent. Like audio is okay. My audio, like there is some problem, it seems. A devotee able to hear properly?
Yes, but
it's okay.
Now it is okay. In between, it gets disturbed.
Oh, okay. Fine. So let's try to. I think the internet connection is little wavering. Okay, fine. So we see that no. Uh, okay. So now we see that we'll just finish this paragraph and we will stop for today, and we will continue tomorrow. Okay, so we are meant to cooperate in the Lord's enjoyment. Okay, so we finished it till. Similarly, the Supreme Lord should be satisfied, although the tendency to become creator and tendency to enjoy is there. No, we should no. It's because like we are part and parcel of the Lord, and when we cooperate in the service of the Lord or assist in the service of the Lord, then we become perfect. No, that is the perfect situation. Otherwise, we will be frustrated, right? So. Okay, so now we will stop here, because the internet connection is little wavering and rain is there. So I think that's why we are not able to get good signal. So we will continue tomorrow, from this point. So because this subject matter that we are studying is the basic building blocks. If we know these concepts very nicely, then reading of Bhagavad Gita will be very, very nice. We will understand Bhagavad Gita very nicely, right? So let's stop here and then spend some good time in this whole introduction, and let's understand this basic blocks very nicely, right? So Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam, sorry, Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And from today on, we are going to have the discussion on Brahma's prayers. So there is some, okay, just a minute. I'll just stop the recording.